Welcome to Tailoring Talk with your host Roberto Revilla. This is going to be a different episode today, so you'll have noticed that I've not been putting episodes out quite as regularly. There's been a lot going on in life, but also we've kind of been pausing a little bit, trying to work out the direction for the podcast. So some little stats to begin with. We are apparently in the top 5% of business podcasts worldwide, which I'm really, really proud of, and I'm very, very grateful to everybody that is listening and watching on YouTube as well. And that's the other thing. We launched the podcast on YouTube about 4 months ago, and in 4 months, but the podcast has had more downloads than the audio version in 3 years, which is incredible. That's like tens of thousands of listens, views. I don't know what you guys and girls, if you're watching or listening to this on YouTube, I don't know how you do it. Press play on your laptops, leave it in the background, whatever it is that you do. I'm very, very grateful. It's amazing, and my little fledgling YouTube channel is starting to grow. Like, the recent numbers in the last 2 weeks have been phenomenal, in part because I've been talking about my new iPad, which brings me to my guest. If you're watching the video version, you'll already know who he is, because you'll have seen him and enjoyed and had the pleasure of his company on our Bondathon episodes. There is one dropping very soon, by the way. Jon Evans, the voice. How are you, Jon?
Well, thank you. I'm lamenting the British summer, unfortunately, as we sit in our warm houses whilst it rains outside through our conservatory windows. Yes, I'm missing my garden drinking wine time, really.
Yeah. It's really funny that you look out of your window to see what the weather's like. I don't do that anymore. I just look at my iPhone or my iPad, because I've got my dynamic
me too.
Home screen and lock screen I've got set to the weather, so that I don't have to look out there.
It's always raining in my iPad at the moment.
Yeah, I know. So, but it's sunny in here, Jon, in the Tailoring Talk recording studio. So before we get into the topic for today, so we're going to talk about WWDC. If you look at the logo, it looks like WDC or WVDC or VWDC, but WW, the Worldwide Developer Conference, that is happening right now. Day 4 is tomorrow. But the stuff that we're concerned with as lay people, quote unquote, happened on Tuesday, which were the announcements regarding iOS 18, iPadOS, macOS, watchOS, AppleIntelligence, we'll talk about that, and visionOS 2. Now, considering that none of us in the UK, and I know all my American listeners, our American listeners, yes, and you're right to raise an eyebrow, Jon, we'll get into it in a second, but I know our American listeners will be familiar with the Vision Pro. We haven't got a clue over here. I don't think any of us. Jon definitely has not touched one. I haven't touched one. We want to get our hands on one, don't we? But we're not going to talk about visionOS 2 today, because it means absolutely nothing to us, so we don't have an opinion on it, do we?
It's very hard. It's very hard when you've never ever used it, because you can't even compare it with visionOS 1, can you? I am looking forward to at least having a demo of it in one of the Apple stores at some point. I'm sure they'll get a lot of what we used to call in the industry tire kickers, people coming in just to try it out without buying. But that's the nearest we're going to get to it until our coffers are slightly fuller of hard cash. But yeah,
exactly. So just before we get into WWDC, Jon, I'm glad that you're here. I absolutely have loved my podcasting journey with you, because I originally came on as a guest on what was Tangents and then became Claypool's Turn, many moons ago. Shazam, reviewing Shazam, that was my first episode.
Wow.
And the other reason I'll never forget it is, I was so excited, I did so much homework, and I was so nervous all day, and then we went to the cinema, and the attendant said, as they, scanned our tickets, I was going to say tore our ticket stubs, that hasn't happened for years.
Showing your age there, Bobby.
Yeah, said, "Are you excited?" And I said, "I've got no idea about Shazam, but I am going to be reviewing the movie on a podcast." And he looked at me like we were celebrities, and changed our seats as well, because
I have to remember that one.
Changed our seats. Well, it doesn't work so much these days, because so many people have got podcasts, but I think then, whenever it was 4 or 5 years ago, it was quite a novel
2019, thing. March 2019, Shazam came out.
Yeah, so 4 years ago. But it's been a wonderful ride. I've just loved being part of Claypool's Turn, and then obviously starting my own journey here on Tailoring Talk. It's been fantastic, and it's just been so lovely to have you. We've done an Apple episode before, I think, but definitely for the Bondathon, it's been amazing.
I've had lots of fun.
Yeah.
It's nice. Actually, it's nice sometimes to have random people that you know but don't know very well, who say, "Oh, I've listened to your Bondathon." It does make you think, what do I say? But that's quite nice.
But we're going to have a lot more fun, I think, because we're going to change the format of Tailoring Talk. But you know what? We're not going to change the format of Tailoring Talk. I think I want to do more of what I enjoy doing here. So there is going to be more actual tailoring talk. think, and everybody who's listening to this, please, right now, tailoringtalkpodcast@gmail.com, or DM me if you follow me on Instagram and so on. Let me know what you want to hear. My thoughts at the moment, and we'll get Jon's in a second, are that I don't want to stop the conversations with people from around the world, creators and self-starters, etc., because I believe that those conversations help certain people. At certain times in their lives, those episodes are needed, and those conversations are very important. At the same time, I like doing my social commentary and looking at the news, and we had the Henry Cavill episode recently, which so many of you listened to, and it brought so many new listeners and viewers on the YouTube channel as well. I want to do more of that. I want to do more of bringing my educational Instagram reels into Tailoring Talk, and using this as a platform to expand a bit more on the 60-second stuff that I do. And I want to talk about movies, and I want to talk about computer games, and I want to talk about music and all the other things that I love. Yeah, Jon, what do you think?
No, I agree with you. What I've enjoyed most about the content that you produce is I really do love your little Instagram, sort of 2-3 minutes history of the typing videos. I'm building my own dream wardrobe of some of the jackets that you show off, and that's great for me, being a gentleman, because also a lot of the clothes are suited for me. I do wonder sometimes what other people think. Maybe the lady dresses, whether you can do any female clothes lines. Depends on what you produce, isn't it, really? But I presume you're predominantly gentlemen's dresses, are you? Gentlemen's clothes.
Yeah, we are. So we do some ladies' pieces, like casual jackets and things like that. But we are male focused.
Yeah. So maybe the shoe line might change. But I love that, because it's the little snippets information that you can then pass off as your own when you're at a wedding or something. Which is really useful. But I do like unboxing videos as well. It's good to see it. I actually watched yours before I opened my iPad, so it's just not to expect, what to leave behind and what to keep. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think more of the entertainment content will be really good, really interesting. So we're going
to carry on those conversations over the next week or so. You, Alex, and I are getting together because we've got Casino Royale wrapped up next in our Blu-ray players or streamers or whatever, so we're going to be reviewing that in a couple of weeks, but we'll take that sort of offline. But I would really love all of you that are watching and listening to join in this conversation and help me out, and just let me know what you want to see, because at the end of the day, I don't make any money from this at all. I do it because I genuinely love helping people. That's why I do my day job. The reason I do my Instagram reels is to try and help people and educate people. Since coming onto YouTube, that has been a scary journey, because you don't quite know how people are going to react, or if anyone's ever going to watch. As this little YouTube community grows, I'm just connecting with so many great people. I want to give a special shout out to Stephen, who has been asking me a lot of questions today about the iPad Pro, and I will put together some shorts answering every single question, not just that Stephen has asked, but all the rest of you have asked as well. So thank you to everyone who's contributed so far. So anyway, let's get to the main topic of conversation, which is WWDC. Have you been tempted to install the beta? I don't know if you've got access to the early beta. I have, because I'm on the developers forum.
Yeah, I did actually develop an app for the iPhone many years ago with a friend. So I still get the emails for the developers forums and so on. So I get in the daily emails with all the things going on. So I could install it. No, I have not been tempted, to be honest. It is very tempting, because my Mac is an M1 Mac, so I could install it on there, and I could have the new iPad. But I don't have a good enough phone, because I have an iPhone 13 Pro. I might work. I don't want to have a kind of a chunked up ecosystem. I want to test it all in one, to test the mirroring of the iPhone and so on, which we'll talk about later on. So no, I have not. I'm usually quite scared doing that anyway, because my Mac is a work device, and you should really be installing it on a separate device you don't use as often. It's a bit of a risk otherwise. Yeah,
I think I've only ever done a beta of Mac OS once, about 5 or 6 years ago, and then swore I would never do it again. And it wasn't because it bricked my machine or anything, but it's just because it was so buggy that things weren't working. And like you, my laptop is my work device, so I shouldn't really be messing around with that. But I'm really tempted.
I have heard that the iPhone beta is quite buggy. A lot of things going awry.
I think I'm just gonna be patient.
Also, you have to remember that a beta does not represent the final product, and quite often there'll be features that you'll have in the beta that get removed by the time the gold version comes out, and it's for whatever reason they want to. So again, it'll be a bit of a shame if something nice is there that gets removed when it gets updated in the official output of the install. Yeah, no, I've not been tempted.
Were we to install the betas though, this is what we would have to look forward to playing with. Yeah. So first of all, look, the biggest thing that was announced was the AI. We knew it was coming. We knew that Apple was going to rebrand it as their own sort of thing or give it their own name. You know, we've heard machine learning from them for such a long time. You know, we've had this chat between you, me and Alex every now and then in our Discord about, you know, Alex will sort of rib because he comes from the Android point of view. You and I are the Apple guys. And a lot of the time, admittedly, he is right. Android are always just those couple steps ahead. But the thing with Apple is that they tend to kind of wait and wait and wait. And most of the time, not all of the time, but the majority of the time, when they implement something and bring it to the market, they knock it out of the park and they just do it better than everyone else.
They're very thoughtful. It's a phrase that Tim Cook uses all the time. It's obviously a buzzword at Apple, but they're very thoughtful. So they as you say, they wait and they see what works, and they also see, I think, most of the time, the dangers and pitfalls of taking up a certain technology. I'm not sure if they've been 100% thoughtful this time around, but we can talk about that later on. But
we can talk about it now. Let's get into it. AppleIntelligence.
Well, first of all, I've just sent you a photograph of a I don't know what you call them on Masters, on a toot, isn't it a toot rather than a tweet? I sent a toot out to another tech podcast I listen to called Connected, which I love listening to, on the 27th of February, 2024, where they were talking about Siri updating. And I actually sent them a message saying, great show as always, chaps. I'd love it if Apple rebranded Siri as AppleIntelligence, or AI for short, Natch. So I actually predict, well, I mean, it's kind of obvious. I mean, a lot of the articles that reacted to the announcement said the joke that actually became reality. So it may have been a bit obvious, but I did think of this name 6 months ago. I'm wondering how much I should charge Apple for my ideas, but there you go.
I mean, in a certain light, you do look a bit like Johnny Ives.
Yeah.
The return, and you are a John too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. The father of AppleIntelligence. You heard it here first on.
Well, I'm just going to set my HomePods off when I mentioned the lady.
Oh,
so I'm going to have to say a different name rather than lady.
To say sugar.
Yeah. Siri, stop. Sorry, she's still talking. Yeah, you know, on the whole, I think AppleIntelligence is amazing. But I think there are a couple of, there's some caveats. I think Apple have been very clever. As you said, they've been waiting to see what the world thinks of AI, and obviously they think now we've got to get on that bandwagon quickly. Did you see the Marcus Brownlee, the MKBHD interview with Tim Cook?
No, not yet. I've listened to the Vergecast. Listened to that this morning. I listened to Apple Insider's summary of WWDC, but I think it's tomorrow that they've got their longer episodes, sort of going deeper into it. But I've kind of purposely been avoiding a lot of the expert chatter, because what I wanted to do with you is kind of come at it from a layperson or just a regular user point of view. Because the thing is, right, so right now on my desk here in front, I've got a studio display, I've got my MacBook Air M3, I've got an M4 iPad Pro, I've got an iPhone 15 Pro, I've got an iPhone 15 Pro Max, one's a personal phone, one's a work phone, people. I've got
install the beta. I've really got enough devices.
Do it on mine. I've got my iPad Mini.
You can't install it on the Mini.
I've got my Beats Studio Pros. I've got my AirPods Pros plugged into my ears. I've got the Beats Fit Pros over there. So, I mean, this is basically, I've got everything that you could buy in an Apple store on my desk. And there are so many, these are feature-rich products, right? Yeah. Do I use even half or a quarter of the features available on macOS or iOS? Or iPadOS, for that matter?
Are you a power user? Is that what you're asking?
Am I a power user? No. Yeah. I've got certain things that I use day in, day out for my workflows. That's it. I don't really need to go use anything else. Just because I've got all these buttons in the card doesn't mean I need to press all of them.
But it's interesting you say that, Bobby, because I think AppleIntelligence, why Apple have been so thoughtful is they've actually looked at what are the most common use cases for the populace, rather than looking at high-end pro user. It's all basic stuff that's just really nice, really clever. So I love the writing focus because I use my iPad quite a lot for writing notes when I'm at conferences and training sessions. And I currently use an app called Notability, which I've used for several years, which is great. I think a lot of university students use it for their lectures. And it lets me write, and then as I'm writing, I can record the audio that's in the theatre. And wherever you tap on the writing, where you were at the time that recording was happening, it jumps to that section in the audio. And I think Apple basically have Sherlock that in Notes. But also you've got this wonderful feature for me when my writing's terrible of tidying up your writing, which I look forward to trying out as well. And obviously the notes, the maths notes tool looks amazing as well. As a maths teacher, perfect, you know. But I think as you know, at its core, all of these different ideas aren't power user ideas. They are kind of fun, a little bit quirky, you know, user friendly, just daily use items. And I think that's very clever of Apple to kind of make the iPhone 15 and above, which are the only devices that can run this AppleIntelligence. Suddenly, I think there's going to be a big uptake in people deciding to upgrade. I think this is going to hit their upgrade cycle. There's going to be much higher demand than previous iterations of the iPhone.
Yeah.
Don't know if you agree with that.
You could be quite cynical and say that this is all very deliberate, because obviously we reached peak iPhone probably around about the iPhone 12, iPhone 13, I think, around about that sort of time. And you know, now I speak to people who always are, they're like, what iPhones do you have? And I've got the 15 Pro, and they're like, oh, I'm still on the 11 or the 12. Because there's not really, for the average person, there's no real need to upgrade. And especially in this day and age where we're all feeling the pinch on our wallets and so on, says the guy that just bought a 1 terabyte iPad Pro. You know, people are becoming a bit more mindful about, just because I can do something, do I need to? Or should I? No, this thing actually does everything that I need it to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been my phone for 4 years. Yeah, exactly.
So let's just let's have a look at some of the features of Apple Intelligence. I mean, the other thing as well, John, I don't know how you feel about it, but I kind of felt like, so I've got, on my Mac and on my iPad and my iPhone, I've got Gemini, GPT, Perplexity, and the other one, Copilot. Which is, right. So the way I tend to go about my days is that I will start to do something, and I might be writing a letter to someone or dealing with a certain problem, whatever, and then I'll think to myself, why am I scratching my head? I can get some help here from one of my AI tools, and then I'll use whichever one I kind of feels probably going to give me the best help in that moment. But sometimes I do forget, and even Carolina, so I've put all of these tools onto her Mac, and she'll come to me, she's like, I'm just writing this draft and I need you to proof it and so on. And I'm like, okay, yeah, fine. She send it over to me. I'll just run it through GPT or Gemini or Perplexity or whatever, and then I check it, and then I give it back to her. And she's like, how did you do that in like 30 seconds? I'm like, well, did you not do the draft in that? She's like, no, I didn't. And then I remind her, and she's like, oh shit. With this, the way that I've seen it is Apple aren't really trying to bring anything revolutionary as such, because these tools are already out there. But what they're doing is they're taking devices that are already very useful in our day-to-day lives and necessary. They're kind of almost extending and enhancing their capabilities. They're leveling them up, as opposed to saying, hey, we're rewriting the rule book on all of this. It's just like, now, you're typing a text message to someone in a professional capacity, and, you're talking in colloquialisms. It's like, oh, hang on a second, do you want to change the tone of that? Actually, do you know what? Yeah, I do. So it's you know what I mean? Kind of, well, like, it's like the Apple Intelligence AI modern version of Clippy. Hey, you seem to be writing an email to your boss, but you've used a few swear words. Do you want my help with that?
I'm not sure how Tim Cook would feel about that comparison to Microsoft. Technology had come to go in circles. I think what Apple have done that's very clever, first of all, is they've compartmentalized the upgrades to Siri in terms of Siri's usability across the system. This ability to issue commands, allow things to happen within apps. Like, you can search for a person in a red t-shirt eating ice cream at a beach on a windy day. And that for me is a real game changer, trying to find that particular photograph. But also, they'd be very clever about keeping the on-device processing and the private servers they use. So Apple have built their own private servers using probably M1 or M2 chips, I imagine. So that when you do ask for a search that needs a bit more processing crunch, there isn't a ChatGPT processing. They have created the most private servers in the world. And this is very clever. They've been very, very thoughtful about this. But at the same time, these servers can still be very cleverly regulated, so they can still be audited. But Apple can't access any of that data either. That data is not kept. It self-destructs after it's been used. So they'll be very careful about saying that they're not training, using any of your data on device to train their large language models. They've obviously licensed them out. But I think that's really clever, because there's a lot of scaremongering about AI. I mean, if I ask my other half, she's I think the same as you with Carolina, asking for me to check something, and I'll say, I'll run that through ChatGPT. Oh, no, don't do that. There's kind of a bit of a stigma attached, because people are recognising the language style of the large language models, which I can understand completely. If you're a power user, you use it as inspiration that you can tweak. A lot of people think you're pressing a button and cheating. So I think Apple will be very clever about creating these private servers that they use. But also, they've been very clever at telling you every time if your phone is using ChatGPT, and you have to click OK every single time. If you are a subscriber, I pay for the full version of 4.0 to get the extra quality and content of ChatGPT. That's 20 quid a month in the UK. It's quite a lot of money for something that's like 3 streaming services. But I use it a lot for my job. And Apple basically will allow you to log in, so you don't have to keep asking. Yes, because you're paying for it already. But if you want the free users, you're going to have to keep asking. And if something goes wrong with ChatGPT in the future, Apple can just literally move to a different service provider for that. And in fact, they're probably going to offer, you're using Gemini, aren't you? They're probably going to offer Gemini on there at some point as well, or other, future AI systems. It's very clever, because it means if things go wrong with OpenAI, or if Sam Altman does something Elon Musk-esque, Apple can just say, we've cut our agreement with OpenAI would move to someone else without that affecting any of their systems, because everything else is separate to the ChatGPT usage, the world search they're using. And it's really clever. They've not integrated OpenAI's services into the phone actual operating system. They've just kept it as a kind of a door to a larger area that they can shut whenever they want to. I think it's really clever.
Yeah, although obviously anything that Siri can't handle does have to be handed over to GPT.
Well, yes and no. As I said, some of it gets handed over to their private service. But you're right. Yeah, there's certain material you can't scrape from Apple server. Certain material they haven't licensed out. So yes, they do have to go to a ChatGPT. You're right. Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? It's kind of also a triple tier system with the phone, private servers of Apple, and then ChatGPT.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, is there anything that stood out for you, Jon, that you're really, really most excited about? Any one or two features that you're really, really excited about coming to your iPhone or your Mac?
I mean, I really, really like the maths notes as a teacher of maths. That was really cool. I'm just thinking for children at home that work on, that's going to be really useful. I love all the writing stuff. For me, I use the Apple Pencil a lot, so that stood out for me. I have to say I wasn't so impressed with the icon, the picture making stuff. The Imagine Playground, or the Dream, what's it called? Image Playground. I mean, I do use image generation a lot, but I am a bit concerned about. But I thought that the original sketch of the dome looked better than the one that they've replaced it with. Yeah. The hand-drawn blueprint actually looked nicer than the kind of the replacement. It's very clever. Genmoji, I think, is fun. I've got no problems with it. I think that's where Apple should have kind of maybe they've gone too far with it. I think a little bit. How would you feel if some random person found your photograph on the internet and turned it into an emoji and then posted it as a comment underneath your YouTube channel? That seemed a little bit more creepy to me. I don't know. Yeah. Which I just think is a little bit of a stumble from Apple that they allow that. I don't know what sort of offensive content that you can make, but I imagine because their image playground is so guardrail with those 3 different animation styles, Apple probably very, very seriously locking down any offensive content as well. But how do you feel about that? Did you quite like that sort of aspect of the AppleIntelligence kind of remit, these different aspects you can play around with?
They're kind of fun to play around with, but I'm kind of like, my day-to-day life, and I think for most people as well, it's not really anything that they're going to really use. It's one of those things that you play around with for the first 2 days because it's like a new toy, and then after that, I mean, I'm really intrigued by the maths, the calculator thing where you hit that button, then you can actually draw your formulas and stuff. Because very often when I'm working things out, that's how I do it, right? But base kind of formulas. The one thing I was wondering about, and because you're a teacher, you'd be able to tell me. So when we had to do algebra and stuff, I was absolutely rubbish. Spontaneous equations, all that sort of thing. And if I could go back in time, I'd jump in my DeLorean, go back to me at secondary school at the age of 4, and I would stick that iPad in his hand and I'd say, don't tell anyone, this is how you do it. Okay, just get on with that. And then I would be top set maths, no freaking problem. I could not. So how I managed to get a B in maths was purely on getting marks for showing my working out.
Yeah. Well, that's good. You're a good student there for showing working out, because loads of kids don't do that. And they when they get it wrong, they get it completely wrong.
Well, it's not so much that I was a good student, Jon. It's just that I knew that was the cheat code to get some marks. Yeah, basically. Right. So I was just writing down gibberish, brackets and minuses, and divide signs.
Oh, show working out. Well done.
And it's like they'll go, okay, well, he tried. We'll give him
a good teacher will look at what you've written and say, have they got an understanding of the question? No, it's complete gibberish. Wrong. To be fair. Yeah. So I don't know who the teacher was, but
I can't even remember that far back.
There has been an app. I've had an app on the iPad for quite a long time, several years, that does a similar thing to Maths Notes. Not quite as cool, but you can write any sort of equation or any maths and press equals and it solves it, just like Maths Notes. But what Maths Notes does is allows you. I mean, variables is a massive thing. My app does not have variables. This has variables, so you can, which is really useful when you're working out equation things. But also, just the little clever bit, the Apple bits, like that dial above the degree symbol that turned into like a. Really, I love to try to play and find out what it can do, what else it can do. That was really interesting. So for me, the caveat is where are they scraping that picture information from? Is it all licensed, or have they nicked everything off the internet themselves? Because I think that's where Apple's put themselves into tricky waters with. But apart from that, it's really good. I mean, I'm loving the look and the style of it, and the fact it's embedded into all the iWork apps as well. I think children will find it really useful if they're doing projects. They can just, rather than searching hours for a picture, they can create one in their work. That's quite cool. That saves some time.
Yeah. So, and a kind of quick fire on iPadOS and iOS 18. But generally, I think the main thing for me to answer your question is with AppleIntelligence in general is just having it kind of baked into the system, so that I don't have to go remember that I've got to open ChatGPT to help me out with something or to check something or whatever. It's there, floating around, ready to help whenever. So that's probably what I'm kind of most looking forward to. When you come onto iOS 18, I think really the biggest thing with iOS 18, because they've added little features in, like the one that is going to make a big difference to me that I'm very excited for, and when it was announced I was like, yes, can't wait for that, is being able to send iMessages at a later time.
Yeah, message schedule. Yeah,
imagine from a customer service, a CX point of view, like you just find out that a customer's 50th birthday is in 3 weeks from now. Well, instead of writing it in your diary and missing the diary entry, you can literally just send that happy birthday, hope you're having a great time, and just time it for whenever.
Yeah.
And you
I don't know how far.
Forget about it.
How forward you can go. I mean, we'll have to play around with that. I don't know if there's a limit on.
I could be very disappointed.
But yeah, that is cool. I mean, I use that quite often for work as well with emails. I don't like to promote the image of sitting up and responding to parent emails at 10 in the evening, because teachers need to have time off as well. So if I see a very important message from a work colleague or a parent, I will schedule it for 6 a.m. the following morning, so they look like I'm a really early riser, which is great. I quite one of the things I like was I really enjoyed the screen customization tools, because
that's what I wanted to get into with you.
Yeah.
I knew you would. Because
I still use my, you can see on my screen here, viewers rather than listeners, but I've got my iPhone up with, mine's all black and white, so I've custom photoshopped all my icons and created shortcuts to my icons.
I don't know if you can see mine.
So I might go back to my normal coloured icons and then adapt them. I'm hoping that there's a black and white filter in the new updates.
I got on the beta for a launcher for iOS.
Yeah.
I can't remember what they're called, I'll let you know. But all I've got on here, and you can't see it on the screen because of the glare,
No.
But I'll put a screenshot into the video so you can see it. But there's one widget which just says my battery percentage, the date and time, and then the next one is just literally call, message, camera, music. That's it.
Will you now that you can change the two icons, the lock screen icon, the torch and the camera, you could put similar things on the bottom there for your phone as well. Yeah, I quite like the torch seems fun. You can actually shape on the iPhone 15 and upwards, because the flash is different. You can shape your beam now as well, so you can actually in the torch settings slide around on the controller and it will change the brightness and shape of your beam. Which I'm trying to think what the use case for that would be. But if you're working in plumbing or electricity and you want to target your beam somewhere, that seems really clever and just very aptly in its kind of fine detail. I like the way the bezel of your phone bends in when you press the buttons. That kind of animation down the side that uses the black of the frame, so it's like you're pushing the screen in. And the whole Siri animation is lovely as well. I prefer that to the circular thing at the bottom. Yeah, no, it looks really good outside. It looks, the fact you can lock or hide apps, which I'm always very nervous about. I've got nothing to hide, but I've always had an issue with handing my phone. You hand someone's phone over to show them your photographs. I'm very precious about my phone, so I like that. That's really good. And the fact you can also resize your widgets is really cool, because I do have some of my screens have different size widgets on them as well, which I like to adapt and play around with. Yeah, I think it almost feels like they've released 3 or 4 updates in one, because Apple normally hold these things back, don't they? And they've gone for it big time. Even the control center you can adapt.
They'll hold certain features back so that they can force people to upgrade mid-cycle. So the emojis thing is a big one, right?
Yeah, so it always is.
For me,
not so sure about the photographs.
Yeah, I mean, initially when they were talking about customization, and Craig Federici, the way he talks,
Love
is like,
Craig.
"Hey, you dumbasses! Look, you can do this." Isn't this amazing? Because nobody's ever done it before, and all the Android people and people like me that have dabbled with Android as well, and we're like, "But you could do that on Android like 500 years ago."
Yeah.
The problem always with Android for me is that I didn't want that much customization. It was too much. I don't want to actually use my phone, not actually sit there, just fine-tuning the thing to infinity and beyond. Whereas I think the way that Apple have done it, I probably still won't customize to the extent that they're now going to allow us to. Well, I say allow us to, it's still not at a code level. It is literally, these are your options and this is what you can do. So you're still within a playpen, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Me personally, I'm happy to be in that playpen. I want an a la carte menu. Not a la carte, no. I want a set menu with several options on each course. I don't want a la carte or even all the ingredients given to me so that I can put whatever I want together. I just don't have the patience for all that nonsense. So being able to...
I think that could be our age, Bobby. That could be our age, I think, a little bit. I think, and a lot of Android users are probably younger Gen Zers who want to have a fiddle and play around with, which is fine. That's completely fine. 15
years ago, when I was still doing my whole, I've got an iPhone, but I'm going to dabble with an Android, the Samsung Galaxy S6 or whatever it was.
Those years.
The reason I threw the Android away after 2 weeks was because it was just too much. And don't forget, mentally, I'm not that old. So,
no, true. And also, Alex is a big fan of Android, isn't he? And he likes to have dabble. So I think it's great that there's different systems out there for different people. I think it was over thus when it comes to the non-Apple users kind of rolling their eyeballs about all these new features that they've had for years. That's fine. It's not a problem because Apple generally does those features in a more kind of a solid and pretty kind of way, don't they? They kind of they just feel a bit more magical, and that's what I think. That's why we like it so much. It's like a gift that keeps on giving. The Photos app, I also want to quickly mention because we haven't got much time left. The Photos app, I'm a bit concerned about because it looks a bit like I'm going to lose things in that app. There's no tab at the bottom anymore to jump to the recent pictures. So I'm a bit worried, and I'm wondering if that might be like the. Do you remember the Safari tab? The Safari tab, the way they pushed it into the bottom at one point. Top or whatever it was. I think we might see some changes in the Photos app up to September when they release the software. So I'm going to hold my thoughts on that. I might end up using the Photos app more outside the Photos app than inside, if that makes sense, by using the Siri app, the AppleIntelligence to find photographs. And I quite like the clearing out of background images, the editing. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that on a Google Pixel
exactly
7 years ago anyway. But it's nice that we've got it now. I mean, there are third-party apps that you can do that sort of thing in as well. Like Photo, whatever it's called, Lightroom does that, and so on. Yeah. So moving on, iPadOS. We've both got the iPad M4. We'll talk about that another time because we're short of time today. Again, not the revolution that some people wanted. Some people wanted to see macOS brought to the iPad. I disagree. I think the iPad should be an iPad. The MacBook should be a MacBook. If you can't afford both, I've got a video coming out in about a week or two's time which compares the MacBook Air with the iPad Pro 14, M4, and I try to help you make that decision between the two devices. But anyway, the things that I'm most excited about with the enhancements to iPadOS are live audio transcription, because for me, I take a lot of voice notes, and when I'm either interviewing people or doing something on the fly for content creation, it'll be a godsend for me. And the other thing is smart script, because again, I write a lot like you on my iPad. I love using my Apple Pencil, especially love using it on this new nano texture display, right, by the way, people, so more on that later as well. And customization, actually, having said what I said about the iPhone, I would like more customization on my iPad because it's my workspace. I use it all the time, and I would just like to be able to move things around where I want them to be.
Well, don't forget, normally Apple leaves the features they bring out on the iPhone to another year, but we are going to be able to resize the widgets and do the same colour filters on the iPad exactly like the iPhone. For the first time ever, they've not held the iPad feature back for a year, so that's really good. Because there's some lovely examples on the Apple website of customized iPads, and I'm going to go crazy on that, I think, a lot of the features that are on the iPhone are coming to the iPad straight away, which is great. It means you need to get the best of both worlds. For me, depending on the release date of the iPhone 16, I'm just going to be able to experience this on my iPad because my iPhone's not powerful enough. I probably will be getting the iPhone 16. It's my time, but I'm quite happy that I'm going to have it on every device. I'm hoping. I think the game mode. We didn't talk about game mode on the iPhone, but I tend to use my iPad more than my iPhone for game mode. But game mode, I was a bit disappointed. I did buy and download the latest Assassin's Creed game, Mirage, on my iPad, but despite having an M4 iPad, it didn't run very well. I got a refund, and so be careful what they promise you at these events because they make big promises about performance. But I'm wondering if perhaps game mode might change that, and because it reduces background activity, maybe the frame rates would have been better. Maybe I should have held back for a bit. But that's really interesting because it makes your AirPods and your controls more responsive. I'm hoping that will work with remote play too. I use that quite a lot on my iPad for my PlayStation 5.
Yeah, that's one thing I need to try out on mine. And I want to mention the Photos app, but I already use the Photos app like that, so I will just ask it. I'll say, find me all pictures of kids. Recently there was this trend on social media, post a picture of yourself when you were a kid.
30 years ago,
Yeah, and I was just like, pictures of kids. Now, I did this on a busy tube train.
For, isn't it?
I did this on a busy tube train, and the people around me were looking at me, cycling through photos of all my friends' kids, who are all mostly white. And there was one woman who sort of coughed, and I just turned around and I was like, just trying to find a picture of myself when I was a child, and she's like, okay.
Oh, you had to explain yourself.
Had her hands on the emergency brake.
Yeah. The biggest feature, if you're asking about the biggest feature in iPad, for me, it's a silly one, but the fact you've got this SharePlay where you can show other people how to use their iPad will really help me with my father. But I'm not sure if it will work on older iPad. I guess you both have to have a new iPad for that to work.
Yeah, I think you would.
I don't know.
No, actually, I'm not sure. You need to have the SharePlay feature on both iPads, so I would guess both iPads need to be able to run the same.
At least M1.
Yeah, exactly, and maybe we'll have to look into that actually, because that's a really interesting question, because that would actually help me with Carolina, because often she's stuck on something.
Yeah,
she gets really
surely
frustrated.
A lot of people who have problems with their iPads are people perhaps who are less tech savvy and perhaps less ingrained in the upgrade cycle and have older iPads. So I'm not sure how useful it will be until we're a few years down the line. But anyway, I think it's a really cool feature. I just really wish you could do iPhone mirroring on your iPad like you can on the Mac, which we haven't really talked about, unfortunately. But maybe we say that for our next conversation.
Exactly. And very last one, which I think we can do in about 45 seconds before you have to shoot off. AirPods are getting an update.
This is cool. The nodding in the shaking the head. That's cool, man.
I do this a lot, John. I don't know about you, but when I'm cycling, I need to ask Siri to do things, right? Like play music. And it's like, hey Siri, nothing. Hey Siri. I start quietly. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. And then I'm like, hey Siri, and nothing. And I look like an absolute mental case, right? Or you've got a call coming from Jon Evans. Should I take it? No. Okay. And then it starts connecting the car. And I'm like, no. So I'd love to just be able to nod and shake my head.
But also, actually, if you've got the voice isolation feature which they're bringing in as well, it's possible that Siri will be more responsive on your bike. I don't use my AirPods on my bike. I have a pair of shocks because I like to be able to hear what's going on around me. In terms of me walking to the train or commuting and so on, the fact that you can have a conversation with someone without background noise with this new sound isolation on the other end is really good as well.
Yeah.
And I imagine that will help with things like podcast recording easier on AirPods as well and everything else. So I tend to record with my with transparency mode on so I can hear my voice. But I wonder if that will affect the listener at the other end. I don't know. But yeah, it's really cool and it's nice because it's I still remember the days of the paid for updates. So it's nice it's all free, making our nice things even nicer. But yeah, well, there's going to be a lot of subscription shit coming our way, but we'll talk about that another time. We've got to wrap up. John, thank you ever so much. Thank you all for watching and listening. To support the show, you can find a link in the show notes. We will be back for Bondathons. We're going to talk more Apple with John, but for now, we've got to love you and leave you because John's got to rush off. Thank you so much. See you soon. John, thank you. As ever. I love it.
You're amazing.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.